So doesn't this look delicious? This leek and potato Irish soda bread. I'm so excited to show it to you all. What you will need to start off this recipe is 3 cups of self-rising flour. In Ireland, we use this a lot. I was really surprised at how much self-rising flour people used in their day-to-day basis. You will also need a cup of rolled oats to add to your recipe, and 2 cups of washed and chopped leeks. 1 washed and cubed russet potato that has been placed in the microwave for 3 minutes to par cook it. A half a stick of butter and 1 egg. And a teaspoon of salt to enhance the flavor. And a cup of buttermilk to bring it all together. I was taught in Ireland to add an egg to the buttermilk to enrich it. I think it turns out really nicely, so that's what I'm going to do here. Now that you have all your ingredients together, it's time to make your Irish soda bread. So now in my hand-me-down bowl, I'm going to put in my flour, my oats, and my salt. You can use any big bowl for this, it will work out lovely, but hand-me-downs are just so well made, so I tend to use them, even if I have to find them at a thrift store. I will give it a rough mix with my hands and then set it aside, and then I'm going to brown up my leek and potatoes. Now I have a half a stick of butter in this pan, and I'm going to add my leek and potatoes and roast them and make them all toasty until they're nice and golden brown and delicious. This is the kind of brownie you were searching for. This will add so much flavor to your bread, and it really pulls it all together. Now make sure that your leek and potatoes have cooled completely before you add it to the flour. If you hear me scraping the pan, it's because I'm trying to dislodge all those toasty brown bits. That's called fond, and those are deliciously caramelized pieces, and I'm really fond of fond, so I will add every bit that I can to this bread. I was stirring my leek and potatoes in the flour mixture before I add in my wet ingredients, just to make sure they're all covered, and it makes it easier for me mixing on later. And then I make a well in the center to pour in my buttermilk and egg mixture to start mixing it in. I always save a little bit of the egg and buttermilk mixture to slather on the top and then sprinkle some oats on the top as well. So save about a tablespoon or two. I'll start by using a wooden spoon to disperse the buttermilk to get it well incorporated, and then once I feel like it's gotten mostly incorporated, I'll get stuck in with my hands. Your digits are really good for mixing things, and I'm just lightly bringing it together, not kneading it, but pushing it together. And with enough squeezing and turning, eventually it will become a solid piece of dough ready for baking. Now I'm going to go wash these very doughy hands. I am also going to preheat my oven to 350 degrees. Now it's time to place your dough on the cookie sheet so we can press it out. So I learned in Ireland something called the blessing of the bread. It's where you score the top in an X and then you prick each corner. Now what this does is it releases steam and gives your loaf more lift, which is really great. But the legend is that you're protecting your bread with Christ, and then you're releasing the fairies, and you don't have any cursed bread. Nobody likes cursed bread. It's bad for you. So that's what I'm going to do next. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Now you have to prick it to let out the fairies, or else your bread will be cursed. And personally, I don't want cursed bread. It's not good. Now I'm taking the egg and buttermilk mixture and I'm slathering it all over the top and sprinkling some oat seeds over it. The baking time is 30 to 40 minutes or until it reaches an internal temperature of 200 degrees Fahrenheit. When it comes out of the oven, let it cool for 15 minutes and then slice as you wish and serve it with a really nice soup or a lot of butter. I didn't want the flavor to get muddled in the soup, so I'm just putting on salted butter, and I'll let you know how it goes. So we made the Irish soda bread, or the leek and potato Irish soda bread, and I wish you could smell it. It smells so flavorful and savory, and you can see little bits of potato and leek in there, and it's slathered. I love slathering my bread in butter. It's one of my favorite things. I'm like, butter. So it's just really good. I'm gonna let you know how it tastes. I think it, I mean, just from the smell, it smells amazing. So. It's so good. Best served with soup or a cup of tea. It's really delicious. I hope you enjoy. So now I'm excited to introduce you to my Irish Tipsy Cake. You are going to love this recipe. It is so delicious. So what you will need first is a box of cake mix, yellow cake mix. I use this one, it comes from Aldi, but you can use whichever one makes you happy as long as it's a yellow cake mix. Next you will need a package of instant vanilla pudding and 4 farm fresh eggs. You will also need 1 cup of water and half a cup of neutral oil and 2 ounces of your favorite whiskey and half a cup of pumpkin seeds. You can also use a half a cup of chopped walnuts or pecans. I just watch out for people who have allergies. That's why I use pumpkin seeds. Once you've gotten your ingredients together, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now in your trusty mixer, you're going to add your cake mix, your vanilla pudding, your water, your oil, your alcohol, and your eggs. And you're just going to dump it in. It's a very easy recipe. Now this is a trick my mom taught me. You have to let this mixture run on medium-high for 4 minutes just to add enough air into it and make it light and fluffy and spongy so it soaks up all the syrup that we're going to be adding to it. See how light and fluffy this is? I always make sure to scrape down far into the bottom of the bowl just to make sure there's nothing left stuck to the bottom. But once you're done with that, it's time to grease and flour your bundt pan, and we're going to add the pumpkin seeds. Now it's time to pour the batter into the bundt pan. Look at how thick and luscious this looks. It smells amazing with that whiskey, and this is going to be so good when you serve it to your friends and family. I always run my spatula around the bundt pan just to make sure there's no air pockets. But once I'm done with that, I will place it in the oven for 40 to 45 minutes or until golden brown on the top. 10 minutes before our cake is done, we're going to make a hot syrup to pour over the hot cake. That makes it absorb it the best. The ingredients are as followed. What you will need is 1 stick of salted butter, 3/4 cup of sugar, a 1/2 cup of water, and 1/4 cup of your favorite whiskey. In a medium-sized saucepan, place your butter, your sugar, and your water. This will come to a boil, so you need tall edges. That's why I use a medium pan instead of a small saucepan. Now that my timer has gone off, I'm going to take my hot cake out of the oven so we can pour this hot syrup all over it. So right before I pour it over the cake, I make sure it comes to a rolling boil, and then I add in the 1/4 cup of whiskey. And then I stir it all together, and then I'm going to pour it all over the cake. I wish you could smell this. This whiskey syrup is amazing. And pouring it all over this cake will make it super moist and delicious. I placed my cake in a cast iron skillet. I recommend you do the same either with a cast iron skillet or a cookie sheet because the syrup is sticky and delicious. Now that this syrup is all poured over, I'm going to let it sit for 30 minutes to cool down. And just like that, the cake has absorbed all of that mixture. Now it's time to turn out the cake, so grab your favorite platter and place it on top. Use a towel if needs be to protect your hands from the heat of the bundt pan. Now ready, steady, flip with confidence. Now shake it up and down a couple times and it should pop right out. Now it is time to see how we have done. I properly sprayed and floured this pan, so hopefully nothing will stick. But if it does, I'm not going to beat myself up too bad. It will still taste amazing. Now for the final touch, we're going to cover it in powdered sugar. This does two things. Number one, it will interact with the glaze, making a nice crust on the top. And number two, it looks amazing. I have to let this cake cool down completely before slicing, so I'm going to leave it overnight and we'll slice it tomorrow morning. So look at how wonderful this has turned out. It has a nice crust on it. I'm going to sneak a piece right now and go have it with a cup of tea, but I'll talk to you more about it later. See you soon. And look at that, we made this lovely Irish tipsy cake, and it smells like whiskey and it smells amazing. It has a lovely coating. It kind of like almost makes a glaze on top when you add the powdered sugar. So it has like a crunchy coating on top along with the pumpkin seeds, and then it has this moist barrier, it's just moist. It's just delicious. I can't wait for you guys to try this. It's one of my favorites. Long family tradition. So anyhow. So good. I love this. It's just a memory in plate form. I hope you guys give it a try. If you do, let me know. Have a great one. One of Lithuania's Independence Days is also in March, so I'm going to be making a couple of Lithuanian recipes. The first one is a yeast roll with ham, sauerkraut, and carrots stuffed inside. It is delicious. I highly recommend you try it. What you need to get started is 4 cups of flour, 1 cup of warm milk, a half a cup of honey or brown sugar, 1/3 cup of butter or lard, 2 farm fresh eggs, 1/3 cup of sour cream, 1 tablespoon of dry active yeast, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Pour your yeast into your warm milk and set aside. That way you can go ahead and start adding your ingredients to your mixing bowl. I warmed up my honey a little bit to make sure it was easy to pour into the mixing bowl. Now that I've mixed in my lard, honey, and sour cream, it is time to add in my yeast and milk mixture. Now I'm going to add in my eggs and scrape down the bowl. Now it is time for me to add the flour and let my machine do the work. It will pull together quickly, so just keep your eyes on it, but it will make a lovely, luscious dough. And look at that, this lovely dough has come together. It feels so soft in my hands. We're gonna let this sit and proof for an hour 30 minutes. And while that's resting, we're going to go ahead and make our filling. Come along with me. But before I start my filling, I wanna make sure that my dough is all snug, so I'll put some cellophane on there, or you can use a plate. One of the major ingredients in the filling is sauerkraut. I was very lucky to find this Lithuanian sauerkraut in a store. I'm going to use half of this and half of a lacto-fermented sauerkraut that is coming up next. This is a locally made sauerkraut, which I love. It has a really tart and tangy flavor. So I'm going to use 2 cups, one of the Lithuanian one and one of this one, but you can just use 2 cups of whatever your favorite sauerkraut is. 8 ounces of your favorite smoked ham, half of your favorite onion, half a cup of raw carrots. Now you're going to take your carrots, your onion, and your ham and put it in your food processor and grind it until it's fine. Now we're going to mix in our sauerkraut and leave it off to the side until we're ready to make our rolls. A couple hours later, and it's time to roll out our dough. I always put a thick layer of flour down before I even get started. Now it's time to put that big ball of dough right in the center and sprinkle it with some flour. I really wish you all could smell this. It smells yeasty and sweet and delicious. Now it's time to roll out your dough into the biggest rectangle that you can, keeping it a 1/4 inch thick. This will make 24 rolls, and you can freeze half the recipe. Once you are satisfied with how big your rectangle is, then dust off the excess flour and get ready to fill it. Spreading out your filling is pretty obvious. Just leave a half seam allowance around it so you can place some water later. Once you are done spreading out your filling and wash your hands, preheat your oven to 375 degrees. I dab my fingers in water and place it all around the sides to kind of create a glue with the remaining flour and the water, and it helps it seal it up really nice and tightly. Now it's time to roll up your dough. Start at one end and keep the roll as tight as you can. I'm short, so I actually have to scoot around my table just to finish off the other side. But you're probably taller than me, so you'll be able to do it no problem. Once you are done rolling, preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Make sure you pinch and crimp that seam to give it a tight seal. I split my log in half before I cut it into pieces just to make it easier for me to work with. Now it's time to cut up that fantastic log into 24 equal pieces. Once I'm done slicing them up, I'm going to place them into a greased baking dish and let them rise again for 30 minutes before I bake them off. I have 10 in this pan right here, but the rest I'm going to place in an aluminum foil pan and freeze them in the freezer. When I want to eat them, I'll bring them out of the freezer and let them defrost on the counter for 3 or 4 hours, and then I will bake off as usual. These will bake for 40 to 45 minutes. And by the way, these are served great with a sauce. That is coming up next. It's made with sour cream, dill, and salt. So here we go. Now, in a half a cup of sour cream, add a teaspoon of dill and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and stir, stir, stir. Now it's time to plate it up for your friends and family, and most likely yourself. So mix up well your sour cream and dollop it heavily onto the plate with 2 rolls. Aren't we so excited? Look at how beautiful these are. I'm gonna make these for Easter because they're awesome, and they're kind of like that in between brunch area food. So I'm making these for Easter this year. I know that already. I hope you give them a try as well. But let's see how it tastes. So I'm gonna take a corner of this and actually just dip it in the sour cream because, like a lady. I'll let you know how it tastes. You get the creaminess from the sour cream, you get a little dill, and then you get the twang of the sauerkraut, which is really great. And then you get the saltiness of the ham, and the dough has a sweetness too, so it kind of balances it all out. And it makes you super happy. Feed this one to your loved ones. They will love you. Have a great one. Now it's time for this luscious Lithuanian carrot cake, made in a blender. Are you surprised? So am I. Let's get started. Now what you will need is 1/2 pound of cooked carrots. I put these in the microwave for 3 or 4 minutes until they were tender. 3 farm fresh eggs. 1/2 cup of honey. a half a cup of brown sugar, 3/4 cup of neutral oil, 10 cardamom pods, and half a teaspoon of freshly ground nutmeg, the zest of 1 lemon, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 cups of self-rising flour. Now it's time to crush your cardamom pods so you can remove the seeds and then give those seeds a grind. This can be a little tedious, but it's worth it for the fresh flavor that you can get out of these cardamom pods. That's why I tend to do fresh instead of ground, because who knows how long the ground stuff has been sitting on this shelf. Now, after all that grinding, you have 1 teaspoon of cardamom. In your blender, add all your cooked carrots and your neutral oil, your farm fresh eggs, your brown sugar as well, and that super floral honey. Now it's time to add in your flavoring. That is your cardamom, your salt, and your lemon zest. Very untraditional, but very delicious. Now that we have all of our ingredients in the blender, we're going to blend it for 2 to 3 minutes, and then we're going to add it to our 2 cups of self-rising flour. While this is blending, prepare 2 loaf tins with some parchment paper inside. Before you add your wet ingredients, make sure you preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Before I add my wet ingredients, I always whisk my flour. This helps remove any clumps and makes it really easy for that batter to come together. This is also known as millennial sifting by Chef John. I love it. I think it's a really genius idea. I hope you give it a try. Look at this luscious batter. It came together so quickly. It's so fluid and delicious. It smells amazing. Let's pour it into our 2 loaf tins. As you can see in these loaf pans, I kind of made a cradle with the parchment paper. It'll just make it very easy to remove it out of the pan later on. That's what I like to do. After you're done filling your tins, you can bake them for 30 to 45 minutes. As they're baking, you can go ahead and make your garnish. I'm making dehydrated carrot ribbons. I learned this trick in Lithuania, but feel free to garnish it however you like. So what I did to make these ribbons, I took a large carrot and took a peeler and just made long ribbons. Now I'm going to place them at the bottom of my cast iron skillet and place it on the low heat until they're dehydrated. They will crinkle up and they add such texture and sweetness to the garnish on top. As you can see, they're starting to shrink down, and maybe you can hear the sizzle of the water releasing. Always do a little bit more carrots than you think you'll need because they'll shrink down quite a bit. I will sprinkle a little bit of sugar on them later on just to add a little bit more texture, but you don't have to do that. They're perfectly fine on their own. Now that my carrot garnish is all done, I'm going to set it aside to cool, and I'm going to continue on with my icing. What I will need is 2 cups of powdered sugar, a half a stick of salted butter, and 1/3 cup of tangy sour cream. I will also need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Also a 1/2 teaspoon of freshly ground nutmeg. This is a very simple icing. I just put everything into my stand mixer and let it go. See, this is why I put a cradle of parchment paper. It just pops out so easy. Now it's time to make a choice. Either you're going to cut it in half or you're going to decorate it as you see fit. I decided to cut mine in half, but you don't have to. You can just glaze the top and put on your carrots and your pumpkin seeds and it'll be great. If you really want to know the reason why I decided to cut it in half, I just wanted to add more icing. Like, honestly, just more frosting in my life is better. So that's why I decided to cut it in half, but some people like it less sweet than I do. And that is one of the wonderful things about creating your own food. If you don't like it as sweet, you don't have to add as much icing. But I do, so I'm going to add in a lot. Now to make it look fancy. Remember, we eat with our eyes first, so do your best to make the top look as edible as possible. Now that I've slathered my top in icing, it's time to add those dehydrated carrot ribbons that we made. They are so awesome. You can hear them clink in the bowl, and it adds so much fun texture. And just for a little bit more texture, I'm going to add in pumpkin seeds for a nice crunch. I love also the green effect that pumpkin seeds have. It makes it look just so beautiful. Now I'm going to stick it in the fridge for an hour or two just to harden up that icing. And then we're going to slice it up. Look at how nice that's sliced up. Isn't it beautiful? I cannot wait to describe to you how it tastes. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Alrighty, so we have the Lithuanian carrot cake. And I have to admit, the first time I've ever seen using carrots as a garnish, just right out, was in Lithuania. Literally in Vilnius. I went to a bakery and it was so unique to see that. And then I had to buy it. They go ahead and sell carrot cake by the kilo, which surprised me because I'm trying to figure out how much a kilo is. But yeah, let's give this a go. The crunch of the pumpkin seeds is delightful. It has the spice from the nutmeg and the cardamom and a little tang because of that sour cream glaze we made. You're gonna love this. I highly recommend making this for Easter or just a spring get together. People would enjoy this, and nobody knows where Lithuania is, so if you do, congrats to you. You get 10 points. I hope you really enjoy this. Talk to you later.